Good day, Ed Willis. Today we are speaking with a little more certainty on something that we've been speaking about a lot, and that's really the likelihood of games of any form going ahead in any sport. You've spoken to the Lions president, Rick LeLacheur, and you are going to sort of revisit that. But I think we're looking at all sports when this happens. The news we got sort of on Friday were that, the P&E, events like the P&E, events like, the fireworks or
Mhm.
a large scale parade. So I guess the Canucks Stanley Cup parade is off
Ah,
if they do resurrect the season and when we can't have a parade. But knowing these large gatherings are off, like I'm not good at math, but I do know that two and
yeah.
two is four, and that tells me that putting more than 10,000 people together in a stadium of any sport is not going to fly this year.
This thing is like trending one way, and it's really been trending that way since March 12th. And I know teams are bending over backwards trying to find some kind of way, any way where they can stage games. And, maybe that Biodome model, maybe it'll work in the short term and they can squeeze something out. But as far as people gathering in, large numbers in public places, I just don't see it until there is a vaccine, and it seems a vaccine will be developed before herd immunity. So I just don't see how they're going to be able to do it unless there is some kind of massive breakthrough that few responsible people in the medical community have
Yeah.
acknowledged right now.
Well, obviously there's a level to what people will say publicly and a level to what people, say behind closed doors. I read an article this weekend in the New York Times that said, hey, people, it could be up to 4 years before they get a vaccine. Now, that was almost a worst case scenario, but the suggestion was, they never found a vaccine for AIDS. It took 4 years to get one for mumps. The production, once you have one and once you've tested it, the fact you might need double dose, like it was very bleak, but I think the point was, yeah, don't expect things to be fine by July,
Yeah.
unless you're talking July 2024. But this really for the CFL, this has to be really unnerving because I think the Whitecaps may
Mhm.
be in the same boat. Losing the whole season without even getting going looks like it's a real prospect. What did the Lions actually say to you?
Well, they didn't really say anything. Yes, yes, they are concerned, and yes, there's uncertainty, like all the things everybody's talked about. But this has to be a gut punch for the league. I mean, the margins it operates on are so slim at the best of times. And now to take out like a year of live gates, to the revenue streams that accrue from that, the TV money from TSN, all those things. I mean, the CFL is viable when it's kind of clicking on all cylinders. Um, you just have to look at the Lions situation here and what's happened since 2011, and there's been a steady decline in attendance. Now, there are franchises that are thriving. The Lions just don't happen to be one of them. But big picture with the CFL, it like I said, it really needs to be, almost like a perfect situation where they've got, good crowds and the TV money and good sponsorship and all those things. And unfortunately, none of those things are in place. And I just, boy, there's some doomsday scenarios out there that just really aren't that pleasant to consider or to talk about.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this with hockey, but you just even think of the expense of putting all the teams up in a certain place where they know they're safe. They've been tested for 2 years. You're bringing people in from the states, from all over the states. Some of the places are still ravaged by this virus.
Yeah.
Without the financial wherewithal, and as good as that contract is with TSN, you just don't have the finances to
No.
try and pull that off. I can't see players wanting to come up and stay in the Motel 6 or the Days Inn, can you?
Oh no, and especially what, for half their salary, and that's like best possible case scenario, right? That's
Yeah.
assuming that something might be in place. We've always kind of and we've joked about Labor Day and how the CFL always starts on Labor Day anyways. Let's just make it official this year. It even if that was possible, I just can't see players coming up to Canada to play for 40, 50,000 for 9 games and then have to turn around. And that's assuming the border is open, and that's assuming it's allowed to go ahead anyways. There's just so many roadblocks in their way right now. And I hate to be Debbie Downer, but every time you kind of stand back and take like a cold, hard, logical look at this, it is really hard to find good news.
Yeah. Do you think there's a sense that leagues are all kind of looking at each other and waiting for someone to figure it out and have a plausible scenario and going, we'll do that? Because I know the Canucks aren't in an easy position either.
No, no, they're not. Well, the thing, like we've been talking about and written about a couple of times, again, that kind of, uh, outpost approach where they fly several teams out to an isolated area and under these closely monitored situations. I guess that's possible over the short term, but a whole season of that, there's no way in hell that can happen. So I just, again, the magic bullet, the way out of this is a vaccine. And everything I've been reading, and I'm sorry, I'm not an epidemiologist, although I play one on TV. It's at least a year off, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just struggling to see how any of this fits. And yeah, that's not being alarmist. I think that's just being realistic.
For those that didn't get the epidemiologist, though I play one on TV reference, that was a TV commercial with, I believe, an actor from General Hospital that played in the mid 80s. So well done.
Yeah, thank you. So that's actually one of my HIPAA references. I've gotten off the Saturday Night Live references to John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd.
One other thing on this, Ed, and I know it's a can of worms and no one knows the answer to it, so of course I'm going to ask you. I start to look at these situations now. I mean, in hockey is one thing because you still had a certain amount of the year played. You know, the MLS was only 2 games in, and now you look at the real possibility of the CFL perhaps losing a whole season. What happens to contracts? Like,
Yeah.
if you had 1 year left on your contract, is that just going to roll over? Are you a free agent come next year? Maybe if you decide, you know what, I got to go find another way to make a living, you don't come back.
No, well, I mean, this is the crazy thing because the CFL had just ratified a new collective bargaining agreement. When was it? It seems to me it was mid-February.
Yeah.
So like a month before all hell broke loose, right? So yeah, and it's one of the questions which has been raised is if a season is wiped out, does that make everybody free agents? Never mind a season, even half a season, because you're restructuring everybody's contract.
Yeah.
Does that make them null and void? Does that make so? I mean, they're going to have to sit down and when they talk about a partnership with the Players Association and the CFL, cough cough. This time they're really going to have to come together and have a meeting in the minds about where this is going to go going forward, because there's like some huge issues that this is going to raise. And even at the NHL level, it's the same thing too. What constitutes, is this going to use up a year of free agency? Is it, you can just sit and start to think of all the questions which naturally arise from this.
Yeah, and of course we have to get in the cheap shot. If anyone is has experience at playing behind closed doors in front of no fans, it's the Argos. So we figured they might be able to get this going. So
see, you know what? This is I think this is a commentary on where my appetite is for this. I don't even have that for cheap shots anymore. It's just like it's just everything is just so sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kicking the Argos. No, but this, I'm sorry. It is funny that the Argos, there's 6 teams have announced either some form of salary cutback or layoffs. The Argos aren't one of them because, of course, they're owned by Bell Media, and it's because I don't think their accountants have gone that far down the food chain that they've identified how many people work for the Argos and what they're making. There, I got an Argos cheap shot in.
Excellent. That's what we want. Well, great stuff, Ed. Look forward to reading the column. We'll be doing more of these along the week. And as usual, everyone, just please stay safe out there. Thanks for watching.